Folks, here we have Officer Jody. She has a new channel on YouTube, and let me explain to you how I got to know Jody. In at the end of 2020, um, Jason Bassler put up a post on his Facebook and said, "These are 20 people that inspired me in the year 2020." And Officer Jody was on that list. I was on that list, and I was totally blown away because Jason Bassler, in my eyes, has always been a hero. He's always been on the front lines of police accountability, and I've always looked up to Jason. I would have never believed that one day he would look at me as an inspiration or anything. And when he connected me and Jody, we ended up connecting, I think, on Facebook or Instagram, and we've been talking a little bit. And she's got a story to tell. I will let her take over from here and tell a little bit about her story. And first, I would like to know, what was it about you that inspired Jason?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate your insight and your expertise in what you do. I really respect everything that you do and everything that all truth slayers do to be able to bring to the public eye what so many people know exists but cannot speak up loud enough to be able to get their voices heard. So I appreciate that. As far as Jason, what I did to inspire him, you'd probably have to ask Jason. He knows that I'm here today, and he's super excited that we're joining forces as a group together to kind of try to really bring people to the forefront of the conversation about accountability. It's not just police accountability, it's government accountability as a whole, right? There's been a big focus on law enforcement. I've been in law enforcement since 2006. So I have been one of those frontline troops to protect people's constitutional rights since the day that I got sworn in. Probably much earlier than that. I would say probably by the age of 4 or 5, I was protecting other people. But I think, in my opinion, what inspired Jason about me was that I reached out to him. I reached out to him as an officer that was on duty and trying to help defendants defend themselves against unconstitutional stops, unconstitutional detentions, unconstitutional arrests. I felt like my position as a public official was being stifled by those in the community of law enforcement and government that did not want me to act on behalf of defendants. So when I reached out to Jason and told him my story, he at first didn't trust me, which I get that. You know, when you're hearing from a cop directly, it's kind of like a little bit shocking, right? When you're coming from that truth environment. Um, but we gained each other's trust and have created an alliance together to really try to formulate the best response for the public and their protections.
Um, so, how long have you been an officer?
I was sworn in June of 2006. So
2006.
June of last year made 15 years.
Wow. And has it been, would you say that it made you a better person or a worse person? I'm
Well,
gonna ask you some tough questions.
yeah, no, I love it. I'm all about tough questions. I think you should probably know a little bit about me in that respect so far. But
Right.
you know what? It's kind of like when you look at somebody that drinks alcohol, right? Alcohol, it all it does is it magnifies the base personality of that person that's drinking, right? It's kind of the same thing in law enforcement. When you have a person that is a heart of service, like I am and always have been, it's magnified me and my ability to protect others and my voice. It's magnified that on the rights of others. So it's made me not necessarily a better person, but it's allowed me to have a better foothold in the community to be able to speak on behalf of citizens. Now, it can work the other way with people that maybe they were a kid that was bullied to death in school and they want to get back at people and retaliate against people. And they got sworn in and they followed their suit of magnifying their base reason, right? Which is to violate people's rights. So, but for me directly, it's made me a better person.
When I read Jason Bassler's first post, when I found out about you, it was said that you were a whistleblower. So can you tell us a little bit about whistleblowing? About what
Okay.
maybe your situation or what happened?
Oh, yeah, I've told this story a million times, and every time I tell it, people are just like, "That does not sound right. It sounds like something like a movie or a book or something like that," but it's my life, it's my reality. And about 12 days out of field training as a brand new officer, I came upon the scene of an incident. I was dispatched to a call, and when I came in contact with the complainant, he told me the story about his involvement with trying to get help from law enforcement for the previous 5 or 6 years. And he brought to me a stack of 3 ring binders or whatever, this really big fat binders filled with police reports and notes and all these kind of things. And I never ever judge people by their cover. I never ever just look at them and formulate an immediate response. I always give them an opportunity to show me who they are as a person. And I don't listen to other people. I always formulate my own opinion. And so a normal person, I think, would look at that and be like, oh, this guy's kind of like crazy, right? I didn't do that. I said, okay, let me look through what he had. I listened to his story. It ended up being fast forward, a little bit. That particular person he was calling about was the wife of a politician. And I did not know, he didn't mention that. And I didn't know the name. So I did what I should have done and I investigated this person and I went to their place of residence and I knocked on the door and I read them Miranda when they answered the door because I knew that it would be potential for me to arrest this person, right? So I read them Miranda and did not proceed to arrest the person, though I had probable cause to do so. I wanted to do a little bit more digging, a little bit more due diligence, and so I did that. But during that period of time, I had been repeatedly called into my police department, repeatedly threatened by my chief and my deputy chief and other officers, literally fingers in my face telling me, you're going to back down and you're not going to do this investigation. And I said, well, put it in writing. If you don't want me to do something in which I am sworn to do, then you need to put that in writing because I'm not going to create a problem for myself in which I am neglecting my duties, being criminally charged with dereliction of duty, or anything like that. Remember, I was 12 days brand new out of field training as a police officer in 2006. Okay. So I had the choice. I could take the path of listening to my fellow officers and failing to act appropriately, right? Or I could do what I was sworn to do, and that is to protect the right of that citizen that was complaining against this particular defendant, right? And so I chose that path. And what ended up happening was I received a letter in the mail. It was around April Fool's, so I was thinking this is a joke, right? I opened the letter and it was an indictment from the federal government. And the indictment was basically alleging that I was guilty of bank fraud and wire fraud. And this was
Whoa.
from a business I had run in 2003, a legitimate business that I had 7 employees with, and I had payroll processes, I had a CPA. It was a legitimate brick and mortar business. And their allegations were that my involvement with this business was fraudulent, scheme and artifice to defraud the banks, and wire fraud and mail fraud. So I was essentially facing 130 years in federal prison, and I did not know who to call. Again, this was I was working that next day, so I had called my supervisor and said, I got this letter in the mail. I need to talk to you. And he said, well, I'm going to be in first thing in the morning. Show it to me in the morning. So I came in the morning and I went to the chief and I said, where is he? And he said, he's not here. What's going on? And because he could tell I was really stressed out. And I said, I don't know what's going on, but I got this letter yesterday here. And I gave it to him. And he immediately, within 30 seconds, without even reading it, he immediately said, give me your gun, give me your badge, give me your ID. I'm going to have one of our detectives take you home. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't even get a chance to speak to my supervisor about it, right? The chief had already made his decision. The detective came in, drove me home. As soon as I came in the door, which was probably about 40 minutes after giving the chief that copy of the letter, my phone rang. I picked it up, and it was a writer from the Orlando Sentinel saying, I'd like to speak with you about your indictment. Well, clearly the only person that knew about it at that point in time was the chief, and so he called his buddy at the Orlando Sentinel, and
Wow.
I was all over the news the next that night. I was all over the news. I was all over the front page of the newspaper. I had family from South Florida, 3.5 hours south, calling me. Why are we seeing you on the news? Um, Again, fast forward now 9 months later, and there's a senior federal judge dismissing my case and saying lack of evidence, lack of probable cause, malicious prosecution, and would you like to sue the federal government under the Hyde Amendment Relief Act because of this malicious prosecution? And my attorney said, I'm going to leave that up to you, Jody. Do you want to sue the federal government? He's like, I would. Or do you want a letter from the government saying they'll essentially leave you alone and you can go about as your business? And I said, I'll take the letter. So I took the letter. I called the sheriff, who was not my boss, that was another agency. And I said, can I talk to you? And we sat down. I told him what happened. He said, I know you never did anything wrong. I know you didn't. I never doubted it. And he swore me in. But before he swore me in, we actually had to get on the phone with the FBI, the agent that lied on the grand jury stand against me. He got on the phone. I told him who I was. He didn't say a word. I said, I'm here with the sheriff and I'm going through a swearing in. I need you to clear my NCIC, FCIC immediately because it was still showing open, even though the judge had dismissed the case. So a few hours later, we refreshed the NCIC, FCIC for my history and it was cleared.
Damn, that's an amazing story. That sounds like a conspiracy theory. Like we
Yeah.
we the people, right, on our
Yeah.
channels, we talk about things like this. We talk about
Yeah.
situations like this, how the police use the mainstream media, local news. They use all kinds of avenues. They have
Mhm.
tentacles to reach out, and
Absolutely.
uh, and so basically, what they did was they were trying to persecute you.
Yes, they were
Bas-
trying to discredit me.
Yeah, they were trying to, and they were throwing you under the bus to save somebody else who is higher up.
Yep. Correct.
And
Yeah.
man, let me ask you this: do you think that this happens a lot in policing, and not very many people take the route that you chose to take?
Yes,
Right?
absolutely. It's what we call the code of silence. And I've talked to a lot of law enforcement officers about it. And it is real, it exists. And, the public call it uh, the perversion of the thin blue line, right? Because essentially that's what it is the thin blue line originally was intended to establish an understanding in law enforcement that it's not us divided by the public. Okay, that's not what the intention of the thin blue line was. It was simply a measure in which that we in law enforcement would be able to say it's us against the bad guys. Now, it doesn't mean it's against the people, but what it has become a code of silence to law enforcement. And what that means is that every time an officer sees another officer doing something bad, instead of doing the right thing and coming forward and risking their careers and risking their income, they've decided to stick with that code of silence and not speak up. And they maintain that silence in order to protect others. I don't do that. I've been very upfront with people that I've worked with from the very beginning that if I see you doing something, uh, somebody's going to know. And so I've had a lot of people that don't like working with me or have literally even said, you're not welcome here. I've had a captain from a local police agency tell me that on the phone. We don't want you here, Jody. And I said, that's pretty interesting that you don't want a good cop amongst the ranks. And I ended up finding out, and he didn't know that I knew, but I ended up finding out that that particular captain of a local agency had been sued for $500,000 and charges sustained against him for sexual battery on a victim in which he placed his bare hands inside of her bra and felt her breasts.
You
So
want to say his name?
this is the kind of cop that stays on duty. He was a sergeant at the time, and now he's a captain, so he's been promoted since that lawsuit.
What's
And I
his name?
spoke.
You want to say his name?
I
Can you
often,
can you
you know
say his
what?
name?
So many names in my head of so many different organizations and so many different things that have done wrong that I honestly would have to look at my notes to remember what his name is.
I like
Uh,
to call people out, Jody. I don't know if you know that,
yeah.
but one of the things that I do well is point people in the direction. And if people need to be called out for doing stupid shit like that, sweeping things under the rug, That's what we do well in this
Yeah,
community.
exactly. But like I said, I would have had to prepare in advance and like have his name written down and stuff because there's just too much in my head, with everything that I know. It's terrible.
And you're gonna be running and operating your own channel, so I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of things that you can talk about. You can put on your channel. You can let everybody know what's going on.
Yeah.
I do think that there is an element of you definitely got to be safe along the way, protect yourself along the way, but there is an element of protection in this community because we the people look out for each other.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories going on. There's one in particular in Florida going on right now. There's two channels out there, American Amy, and I don't know if you've heard of her, but there's another channel called Lady Justice Liberty Press. They're out there helping a woman named Megan Walsh. You ever heard of Megan Walsh?
The name sounds familiar,
She's
but
she's the actual daughter of none other than America's Most Wanted host John Walsh.
yes, I
And
am familiar with that man.
there's a
Yes.
there's situation there's a case going on. They've been taking all her kids. Recently, they took her 5 day old child, and so she's been reaching out to a lot of us in the community. I guess she found this community and appreciates our work, and so American Amy and Lady Justice Liberty Press, they're out there right now helping her out, helping her cover the story, and I think that's kind of what we do well. We try to protect each other. We try to help each other grow. And because this First Amendment auditing community, when it first came about, it was kind of small. Sure, there's a lot of misfits and all kinds of stuff here in this community, but for the most part, I think there's really intelligent people, really smart people, motivated people, dedicated people to bring forth the education of the Constitution, of the First Amendment, at least the simplicity of it. And I will say that we do have a high percentage of likes versus dislikes because we don't really get political. We don't try to lean left or lean right. We just say, hey, man, this is what it is, and this is where we're going from here. And we try to bring forth the pressure on these public officials who are fucking up and doing stupid shit. And you were a cop for a long time. You stood up for what's right since day one, and they tried to persecute you for it. You've had to go to different departments. Uh,
Yes.
some departments didn't want you. You told me about a department last time that was like willing to open up the doors, and they even told you stuff like, "We need officers like you here." They welcomed you in. You want to tell us a little bit about that department?
Sure. Well, I've actually been affiliated with four agencies, and it's funny because the podcast that I was on with Jason a couple years ago, one of his cohorts had said or mentioned the word. Um, Gosh, I forgot what the specific word is, but he mentioned that there are some cops that look really terrible, like they're agency jumpers or something like that. I forgot what he said, but I said, yeah, well, if you look at my background as far as through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, we all have those ATMS global profile sheets, right, which shows our alignment with which agencies we've been with. And I've been aligned with four since 2006. So I look terrible on paper.
Hmm.
And the reason is because the first agency was the one that threw me under the bus when I whistleblowed. And then the second agency I was with, I retired with them after I don't even, I'm trying to remember how many years. I think it was 7 years that I was with them. Uh, and that was great. They're a great agency. I love them to death. Great people. And then I left them because of personal reasons with my marriage. I was going through divorce. It was just very traumatic and everything. So I left that agency to get outside of law enforcement and to go into private sector business. And so I did that. And I missed the interactions with people. So I decided to go back into law enforcement. So my third agency is the one that got rid of me. And again, that was because I was defending a defendant. I was defending a felon that had been illegally detained and illegally arrested and illegally imprisoned. Uh, and so for 2 years, I fought for him and his family. And I was just sickened by the fact that I just cannot seem to find a home, right? I cannot seem to find a home. So when I got fired from that third agency, I went back to the private sector business world, working until I got a phone call from a friend of mine at the sheriff's office, which again is a great agency. And he said, "Hey, I think there's another place that's looking for reserve officers." So I wanted to keep my badge active, right? I worked hard for it. I have a master's degree in public administration. My hopes were back in 2006 that one day I would be a police chief. And so I worked hard for that and I wanted to keep my badge. So I went and I worked for an agency in the next county over, and they've since been absorbed by the sheriff's office, of that county, not the one that I worked for.
For what
But
reason? Is it a bad reason?
no, it's not a bad reason. It's just that because of cost saving measures in the county, the citizens took a vote and decided
Mm.
they wanted to save approximately $60,000 a year by transitioning that small agency over to the SO. So the sheriff's office took over. Not again, not that it was a bad situation. It's just cost saving. Citizens don't want to pay more taxes for services, right? So they felt that it was better for the SO to take over. But while I was there, I had a great relationship with my supervisor and my chief, and they were very supportive of me and knew of my history and background. And it didn't scare them because my chief had been through very similar situations where he was a whistleblower. So having alignment
Mm.
with a leader that is ethical, they understand when they see cops that have kind of a checkered past, like I did. Right? It wasn't that I was a bad cop. It's the fact that when we do speak up against other people, we get blackballed. And now, behind closed doors, you've got all these leaders in law enforcement that are saying, "Oh, don't hire her, don't hire her. She's going to tell on you." Right? And that's why when I called that local agency looking for a position, that captain that picked up was in charge of recruiting. He said, "We don't want you here. We know who you are." So they blackball cops that are good.
Damn,
And
imagine if you had that recorded. That'd have been nice.
yeah, but unfortunately, I mean, here in the state of Florida, it's a you've got to
One
get that
party consent
authorization.
state.
Correct. And so I'm not going to be hemmed up in wiretapping charges because of that. So I haven't recorded anyone without their consent. So I
Even if it's a public official. Now I know your situation's a little bit different because you were actually applying for a job. You were. I don't know how that works, but from my understanding, um, those wiretapping laws in all 50 states don't matter if it's a public official because uh, via Supreme Court, we're able to record and document with no knowing or without knowing the public officials, whether they know or not that we're recording them, we're allowed to record them. So I don't know how your situation would have worked in that, but
Well, I'm not an attorney and I follow Florida state statute. And if I'm having dealings or investigations in other states, which I do, I follow the statutes in which those states are abiding by, right? So I understand that there are constitutional, not constitutional rights, but I mean, but there's case precedent, right, on certain things. But again, the only way for me to protect myself truly when I'm having people come up against me is by having an attorney. And my attorney is Robert Gorentz. He is one of the best attorneys in the country. He's a former federal chief prosecutor of 16 years. And I thank him every day for my life because I had three children under the age of 6 at the time of my indictment, and I was facing a lot of time in prison. It gets me very emotional
I bet.
because I was traumatized by that. So I thank him for my life.
Um, you mentioned the word attorneys.
Hmm.
Now we live in the age of information. Um, of course, we learn how to do the dumb shit first, right? Because that's how we
Yeah.
people are. Like when we are toddlers, we learn how to do pick up toys and play and toss them around and hit things and fight with your siblings and shit like that, right? We learn how to do bad things first, I think. So the age we live in the age of information. Now we have the internet, and I always say this, man. People talk little bit of shit sometimes, but thank you, YouTube, for allowing us to be on your platform and sharing our stories and sharing what we got going on. And I think because of that, I think we're able to learn and understand how policing works a little bit more than we ever did before. Many folks are now talking about qualified immunity. What does qualified immunity mean to you, as a matter of fact?
I think it's terrible.
Think it's terrible?
Uh, I think it's terrible. I think it creates a sense of protection that shouldn't exist for law enforcement officials or government officials at all. I think that every time an officer does something wrong, they immediately think that, or even know that they're protected from any kind of external scrutiny and harm. And every time I've gone up against the cities that I was fired from, they had taxpayer money to fight me. Whereas I had to reach into my very slim, lint filled pocket in order to pay for an attorney to protect me. Even the unions that I was with were refusing to help me. And
Unbelievable.
that was after years, decades of paying dues. They still would not help me. So I think that the laws need to change, and that law enforcement officials, when they're under investigation for wrongdoing with the public, that it should be mandated that if they are found at fault, that they repay every cent of that taxpayer money that was spent in their defense. It's unacceptable to think that you and I, as Joe and Susie citizen, are funding the fights of these officers that are in the wrong. It's just not acceptable, and I want to see those laws changed.
Um, and those two things that we talked about, lawyers and qualified immunity, I'll tell you how that goes in hand sometimes. Now, you said something, and I hear a lot of folks say this often, is that we need lawyers, yada yada. I have personally have seen lawyers take people's money, um, knowing that a cop will get off on qualified immunity. There should be some kind of thing where lawyers don't take your money if that's what happens. They can't or something. Um, like I said, we live in the age of information. Will we ever get to a point in time where we, the people, can use each other instead of using lawyers? Because lawyers are people, right? We are people. Sure, they go to school and they understand law. Officers don't. They don't know much about. How many officers have we seen where they say, "We don't know all the laws in the books"?
Oh
There's
yeah,
just way
I
too
can
many,
speak volumes about that. I'm
way
telling
too
you
many
right
laws.
now.
And but ignorance of the law is no excuse for you, but
Correct.
not for me as a cop, right? And it's just one of the things I do well on my channel is point out police hypocrisy very well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of policy that allows this hypocrisy to continue to grow into the monster that we are seeing today. Police officers out there, and I'm not saying all because I have definitely run into some cops that appreciate what we do. There's one cop in Sacramento. He was a sergeant. He was a three striper. We don't call them sergeants no more because it's a military term, right? Shout out to Blue. But anyways, there's a sergeant out there, and one time we got into it with a whole bunch of cops that were out there, and there was two sergeants. One of them was really rude, and I kept telling him they're dismissed, and he left, and he didn't want to help get us a complaint form. The other sergeant walked up. He's like, "Yeah, I know who you guys are. I watch San Joaquin Valley Transparency," and I'm like, "How you doing, man?" And he's like, "That's you," and then gave me a fist bump. And later on, he seen somebody else. He's like, "Yeah, weren't you down here with San Joaquin Valley Transparency?" And he's like, all right, man. Hey, you let me know if you need anything. And his whole attitude was like, that's what we need to see. Cops
Yes.
who really appreciate not just what we do, but why we do it. Forget about who we are. Like I said, some of us are misfits, and a lot of us do stupid shit with our channels, Jody. I gotta tell you, and this is a disclaimer for everybody watching right now, and for Jody. I help channels grow. What people do with their channels is beyond me. Um, do what you will. If you're fucking up, people are gonna call you out. Straight up. If you don't believe me, find out who Chili DeCastro is. People are getting monetized making fun of this fucking guy. You got about 100 channels right now blowing up because they're all making fun of this fucking clown who thought he was gonna come in here and make a joke out of this whole community and take the people for a ride. I got a conversation on YouTube. I'll show it to you. It's unlisted, and it's me talking on the phone with Chili. And it's long before everybody started calling him out. I kind of seen what he was about. Bigger channels like Direct D, everybody started seeing what he was about. Little by little, they started calling him out, and the next thing you know, the whole community is pissing on this dude. To the very last auditor that supported him, no more. And nobody supports this guy no more. So that's my disclaimer. Do what you will with your channel. The people are watching and they're paying attention. So what I do very well is try to bring you the court of public opinion, especially when you have public officials that are acting up, not wanting to do their job correctly, maybe even picking on you, Jody. What if cops start coming around thinking they're going to harass you because now you got a YouTube channel? Um, we try not to allow that. We put the pressure on them. And I will say this too. After hearing, I've thought about this, but hearing you speak even more, I think about this even more. My brain runs 100 miles an hour, so please forgive me. Um, should cops have an alternative uh, means of revenue, or have some kind of backup job ready? Have something ready just in case this doesn't work out, because I see a lot of cops are willing to do what they're told, even if they don't want to. They won't quit their job. They're afraid to lose their pensions. You mentioned something that was important. When cops mess up, it doesn't come out of their pocket. It still comes out of the taxpayers. I've seen many times they say that because the families shouldn't be the ones suffering for the cops' mistakes. So they let them keep their pension and retire and keep feeding their families and shit. Sure, nobody's child should suffer because of what the father does, but at the same time, we the people make a mistake. They don't give a shit about our jobs. We can't say, hey man, check it out, bro. We try. I'm gonna lose my job, bro, if you impound my car. Can you fucking please just let me drive it home or just park it? I'll come back. We're impounding this shit. And they don't give a fuck about your kids. They don't give a shit about you. Not all cops, but a lot of times we see that.
I use discretion. I
Discretion, right?
always look at the totality of circumstances, which is a term that law enforcement officers understand. And I always had the conversation with that person about what was going on in their life and what I could do to make things better for them. I never looked to make a stat for an arrest because, and then not care about that person's end result. I've let people leave their cars on the side of the road or get them towed or call a friend, whatever it may be that I can do to help that person. My goal was not to harm people in any form or fashion. I'm empathetic in that respect, right? But again, there are individuals that are in law enforcement, just as in any career, that are not there for the best reasons, right? And then there's some of us like myself that are hearts of service and really do align with what you do in your day to day because we appreciate the Constitution of the United States and we enforce that idea in our oath in protecting citizens through, using that ability of discretion wisely, right? And also educating the public as to what their rights are. I've literally had phone calls from friends and they're like, oh my God, I just got pulled over. What do I do? And I'm like, don't talk. Don't say anything other than just getting your driver's license, your vehicle registration, and proof of insurance, handing it to the officer. And if they ask you any questions, you do not have to talk. Get your phone, get your attorney on the phone, start recording. Like this is stuff that I tell people because I know that there are people out there that are not operating under the best guises as a law enforcement official, and it's really sad for me to even have to say that because ethics and integrity should be the number one conversation when an officer is in the police academy. That should be the first and foremost conversation every single day of that officer's training and going on to their field training with their agency. The number one thing, if you have integrity, okay, you will do the right thing whether somebody is watching you or not. And that's the whole point, is that we need to really, really reinforce the basics with people going into law enforcement and get them to understand you are a social worker. You may have that gun on your hip to protect yourself or others in a critical incident, but first and foremost, you serve the public. You work for the public. You are a social worker. If you get a phone call from somebody or you're out in the on the road and you get dispatched to a call where you're dealing with somebody that's drunk or under the influence of drugs, your number one duty should not be to determine how to place them under arrest and detain them. Your number one duty should be to determine the root cause of why they're there in that situation. 9 out of 10 times, when I get to the root cause of why that person is dealing with me as a law enforcement official, it's because they have an addiction to drugs or alcohol, because they're masking a mental uh, disability, whether it be a psychosis that they were born with and is genetic, or they were sexually abused. And now this has created them this wave of terrible interactions in their life that now puts them in front of me as a police officer. So,
You gotta be kind of willing to open up and soak all that in, and be able to. Because I've got to tell you, this is mind blowing to me. I love hearing what you just said because I've never really heard anybody say that before. You think if officers had that in mind, there'd be much better policing out there?
absolutely. I think that, first of all, the individuals that typically go into law enforcement are not extremely educated right up front, right? They're looking for, oh, a buddy of theirs said, oh, my dad's a cop and he only went into police work 30 years ago with a high school diploma, right? And so people think that this is the easy way to a career that can get them that pension, that can get them those easy benefits, clock in, clock out. I think that a lot of people that go into policing don't necessarily go into it with the right methodology, the right thinking, the right education, the right training, the right empathy levels, the right level of integrity or ethics. My story, as far as my life growing up, was I was the product of a single mother that had 3 kids from 3 different fathers. I'm Native American. My father is Native American. He passed away last June, but my family lives on the Taos Pueblo in New Mexico. So I'm half my father, so I'm half Native American, federally registered, and the other half is from immigrants from Russia during world, around World War II. So I have a very strange ethnic mix, but it's created in me an understanding of hardship when I was coming up as a child. And then my mother got married when I was 8 to a Los Angeles sheriff's deputy, and he served for 26 years. So I have this experience in myself that I understand the hard times that people experience, because there were times when I was sitting on a wood crate in my living room. We didn't have any other furniture. And me and my sister were opening a can of, it's like stock eye salmon with red sauce, right? That was our dinner when we were eating it with a fork out of a can. I mean, I've experienced some really incredible hardships as a person, and I always wanted to reach out to other people and help them and leave them in a better place than when I found them. That's a different story than a lot of cops when you talk to them, right? So,
You know, my most cherished moments as a child or as a kid growing up was our most poorest moments when our electricity was cut off and we're all sitting in the living room by a candle listening to my mom's stories, getting to know my mom. Because we as kids, when we're born, we only know our parents from the day we're born on that day forward. But we don't know our parents, their childhood. We don't know how they grew up unless they tell us, right? A lot of times
yeah.
we're not even fucking listening, especially today with all the shit we got in front of us. What did you say, Dad?
Yeah,
Like what?
I got 2 phones.
Right? Me too. And so, like I said, my most cherished moments was when we was poor. So, what can I say? Um,
But that those experiences, and I talk about this in my TED talk, and I'm sure you've seen it by now. But I talk about our experiences create our personalities, right? We are a sum of all of our experiences. We're a sum of how we were raised, and even taking into account like rhetoric and agenda that our parents kind of instilled in us growing up. I've become my own person. I, like you, don't go into the political conversation of, when somebody asks me, oh, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? I don't get into that conversation. I am about doing the right thing for the greatest good, for the greatest quantity of people, period. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or whatever. I don't care what race, color, creed, sex, anything, religion, whatever. I don't care. That has no meaning to me. The only thing that means anything to me is if you are a person with ethics and integrity, period.
Hmm. Makes a lot of sense. So we're gonna be cutting this here short here, but I want to give you the opportunity, Jody, to tell the people what you're gonna be doing with your channel. I'm sure you don't have it all, at there ready to go yet. You kind of thinking of what's going on, and I will say that YouTubers are badass people, and not all of them. There's some shitty people on YouTube, but the YouTube community seems to come together a lot. There's a lot of different communities connecting. There's the predator poacher channels. They're connecting with a lot of the auditing channels now because we all appreciate each other.
Yes.
There's also some channels out there. I don't know if you've seen these kind of channels, but there's one called Depths of History. Um, and some of these channels, they go out and they use magnet fishing, and we actually started an outdoors channel as well. We haven't done much with it. We still want to do things with that. But they pull out guns out of the rivers.
Hmm.
They find missing people, cars that have been missing for years. It's communities coming together and
Yes.
looking out for each other. And
Hmm.
we all kind of help each other grow little by little, and everybody's growing and everybody's growing, and it's a wonderful world. People are getting paid fat. They would have never expected to make $1. Like I said, it's helped my family in tremendous ways. I think that one of the reasons that my channel has survived for so long is I keep it simple. I don't go into politics, just like you said.
You do the right thing. That's
I
why I feel like most aligned with you and why I reached out to you for that partnership to be able to create this understanding between your viewers and the fact that if they have questions, comments, concerns related to law enforcement dealings, that they understand that you know who I am, I know who you are. I'm here to help you, and you've been amazing at partnering with me to be able to launch my new page. And if it weren't for you, to be completely honest with you, I don't think I would be even trying to open a channel at all. I would really be feeling like it's too overwhelming for me.
Many folks don't know the kind of work that I do behind the scenes. Some people will say things like, "Oh, you just take videos and post them on your channel, yada yada yada." Can you talk a little bit about maybe how I helped you behind the scenes? Not to toot my own horn, but
No,
I
I
want to
get it.
give
Yeah.
I want to give the people a little bit of insight of the kind of things that I do with folks behind the scenes.
Yes. Well, I became aware of you because of Jason at Free Thought Project. Okay. So when I asked him, how can I further my plight with what I'm doing? And again, I was a sworn law enforcement officer aligned with an agency when I asked him that. And he gave me a short list, a very, very short list of people that he felt were like instrumental in the accountability and transparency environment. Right. And so you were at the top of that list. And that's why I reached out to you. What you've done for me is enlighten me as to the auditors and the people in the accountability and transparency environment that are doing the right thing and following kind of an oath of ethics when it comes to what you do. And you've also aligned for me how the steps that I need to take in order to open my channel and to kind of engage with other accountability people to get the word out there. So I have aligned with Alley for Truth, which is another YouTube channel. My number one mission and goal is to expose the government collusion and corruption that I have found through my most recent whistleblower case. And that's why I chose to come forward and open my channel because we are going to be exposing not only official case documentation on screen, it's public record, but again, we're going to expose it on screen and we're going to expose the people that are complicit with the cover up for other government officials. We're going to expose a lot. And I know that I'm going to get hate mail and I know I'm going to get threatened, but that's okay. I'm accustomed to that. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. You can call me every name in the book, and all it's going to do is put a big smile on my face. It means that I'm doing the right thing and I'm pissing people off for the right reasons. Any way that we can bring the conversation to the table on an everyday basis. Look, this is the problem is that the more that we shut down conversations about all of these collusion and cover-ups for people, the more that we don't talk about it, the more that they're able to hide under those rocks. So we need to turn all of these rocks over, expose everyone in their underbellies. And some of these, I've got two people in this case that I'm working right now that are running for public office. July 7th, they go up for vote. One is a state attorney and one is a county council person. Both of them are complicit within this case that I've been investigating for 21 months now in this child sexual abuse case by a government official. They cover up for one another because they go to the same church, they belong to the same Rotary Club. They went to law school together. They're all buddies, and it doesn't matter that they're harming our future children's, lives. It doesn't matter to them. All they know is that's my buddy, that's my pal. I'm going to do what I can to keep everything quiet and hush hush. And I want to expose these people for what they are, which is absolutely disgusting, immoral, unethical people that just deserve to not ever, ever serve the public again.
I agree. I agree. And be imprisoned as well. I think that
Yeah,
people
of
that
course, of
commit
course.
crimes, yeah, people that commit atrocious crimes like that, wearing the badge or even being in law enforcement, because a lot of times I think that these officials or these servants use that badge and use authority and just to do certain things. And I
Yeah.
think that's disgusting, and I think it's sad that um, that they're walking around like the real sovereign citizens. They can do whatever they want.
One of these cases that I'm involved in is directly related to the circle of friends that are associated to former, he's now deceased because he put a gun to his head, Judge Jonathan Newell of the Eastern Shore in Maryland. Okay. So if you do any research on Judge Newell, you can just go to Alley for Truth on YouTube. She's got all the information on there that she's gathered, which is true. Um, but my case is directly related to government officials within the state of Maryland. And I will tell you what, in my experience over the last 15 years as a government whistleblower and investigator into accountability measures, I have never seen such atrocious levels of complete, absolute disregard for the public other than Maryland. I mean, not that there's not corruption in every state, right? But my direct experience related to Maryland, absolutely horrific. And that is what I'm going to be exposing on my channel. So thank you so much for having me here today. And I look forward to interacting with your viewers to be able to really show them that I'm here to help them. And if they have something that they want me to look into, that is my bread and butter. That is my passion, is to find the answers and to help that citizen get the right place for themselves, their family, and even their heart in that closure. I want to be able to do that. So thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome.
The other day, we both were followed, and somebody tried to run me off the road. This was on the same day. It happened to her at 8:30 in the morning, and it happened to me at about 4 o'clock that same day, where a man in a unmarked van with dark tinted windows tried to run me off the road, and I had to take evasive maneuvers in order to keep from getting hit by him. And he had a headset on his head, not like yours, but more of like a smaller
Right.
with
Or he's
a mic.
talking and listening to someone.
I'm sure. I mean, why else would he be wearing a headset? It wasn't like headphones like
Headphones.
yours. It was more so like this,
Right.
where it has the little speaker. But I had to take evasive maneuvers. So we're now at the point where people listen when they shouldn't be listening on our phones, right? And they are trying to monitor our behaviors.
Wow.
So no, unfortunately, when people get aligned with me and involved with me, there's usually some sort of strange events that occur after that, and the only thing that they can attribute to that is me. And so it doesn't bother me. I'm not worried about it. I'm always armed. I'm very well trained, both military and police. So I don't ever worry about my safety. I worry about my victim's safety. But again, Bikers Against Child Abuse are there to protect her. And I'm not going to stop what I'm doing. I've literally told state attorneys in the past that told me to back down. I've told them the only thing that's going to stop me is a bullet to my head. I'm not afraid. It doesn't bother me if I get threatened, and I don't care if people call me names. It just makes me smile because it makes me know that I've put their hair on their neck up and made them realize that I'm watching them and they're being watched. And it's nothing against me. I don't worry about myself. I've got life insurance policies into the millions that will protect my family, and if I get hurt, it doesn't bother me. I don't care.
Well, you're very brave, and I commend you for your work. And I got to tell you, for those doubters who are watching right now, don't go subscribe to Jody if you're just gonna go there and talk shit. If you guys want to go support Jody in her work and her efforts, if you guys want to make sure that you guys can see if you guys can help her be safe, find ways to link up with her out there in Florida, find other channels, and not only that, we as a community, I think, need to open up and allow you to speak, allow us to learn from you what we can. Of course, we are obviously everybody's gonna have their filters up. They're gonna be like, she's a cop. She's
Yeah.
once a cop, always a cop. How many rights did she violate? You're gonna get some comments, okay? Guaranteed.
Oh yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I know that. And that's why I welcome people. I have people that are out there that are looking forward to you releasing the show so that they can call in with questions and comments and support, because I have sacrificed my career as a police officer to protect people that are wrongfully arrested, right? I mean, like, I literally was on the phone with wardens at prisons telling them that they have somebody in custody that should not be there. I mean, how many cops do you hear doing that? These are
Right.
recorded phone calls. So if they want to pull copies of me calling and making statements to Department of Corrections about citizens being there wrong, then that'll just prove my case that I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm here to expose the truth and create accountability measures and transparency for the government officials that are hiding. We need to expose all of these people for what they're doing. And it's just sickening that anybody would ever think that I'm here to do anything other than protect people.
That's good. I'm glad you say that. Watching American Amy's video on Megan Walsh, they showed the body cam footage when the cops were there, and there was the lieutenant trying to de-escalate the whole time. Obviously, he had a paper in hand to go take the child, so he had to do his job. But you had the sergeant who was under the lieutenant, right? The three striper. He was like, hey, hey, we're ready to go in. We can go in. We can. If she's not gonna go ahead and open the door, then we can take her in for, this or that. He's wanting to arrest her. He wants to get physical, and you hear the lieutenant, hold on, back up, like, and I'm just like, damn. Obviously, though, both him and the lieutenant and the sergeant, they got to go in there. They got to do the job.
Yeah.
But one of them's trying to do it where de-escalation, don't want to take the mom to jail. Not only just take away her 5-day-old baby, but take her to jail too. He's like, we don't want to do that. And then the other guy's like, let's do it. Like, let's go. And this guy's
Terrible.
like, and it's just it saddens me to see. And I did like a live stream like this. I haven't edited and posted it yet, but I'm gonna do that in some of my narrations. I talk about how it's sad that sometimes you'll be an officer and you see things that are not right.
Yes.
And I really appreciated one other thing that you said. That way I'm paying attention. You said that you wanted you wanted your supervisor to put it in writing.
Yes.
Um, that is big, in my opinion, because that's how everybody washes their hands,
Yeah.
and that's how when somebody at the end of the day gets in trouble, they're gonna put the blame on the whistleblower, the
Hmm.
one who doesn't want to do the job correctly. Like the whole video that I was posting, I'm like, damn, it seems to me like this fucking lieutenant's gonna get demoted, and this sergeant's gonna get promoted here pretty soon because the
Yep.
sergeant's willing to do the dirty work, and the lieutenant's trying to minimize and this and that. And I'm just like, I see things that are wrong in policing over and over again. I talk about police unions, internal investigations, qualified immunity, a lot of
Hmm.
different things I think that could be thrown on the table, readjusted, reevaluated to see what we can change in policing. I've talked to people who are involved in politics, high impact flicks, Brian, good, great guy. He's had many channels. They've been taken down, and he keeps growing. He keeps growing his channels. He called me not too long ago too. He's like, "Hey, bro, I hear you're the man to call with the help. How can you help me? And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me, bro? You've been around forever. And I'm like, look, bro, a long time ago we had a conversation. You told me to start doing more politics. I told you, hell no. That's the shit that gets us fucking 50-50 on the likes, dislikes, and
Exactly.
motherfuckers get shut down all the time. So you can't call Joe Sleepy Joes all the time. You get fucking taken down and shit. He looks sleepy, but some things I just don't say. So, anyways, I told Brian, I said, look, bro, you hug your own tree, I hug my own tree, right? We're activists, we're tree huggers. Fuck it, call us what you will.
I've had people call me that.
I love it. Call me a tree hugger, man. Fuck yeah, it's my tree. I hug trees, but my tree's a little bit different, right?
I've been called that in uniform by other cops. You're a tree hugger. You're a
No
bleeding heart
shit.
liberal.
Yeah. Um.
I'll tell
So
you what, though, one thing, I don't mean to interrupt you, but number
go for it.
one, I think the people need to come forward with every single police agency in the country and they need to demand cabs, community accountability boards, citizen accountability boards, either way, however you want to say it, a cab. Those accountability boards that are being established within the state of Maryland as of July 1st, okay, 2 days from now, there will be an accountability board for every law enforcement agency as mandated by the state of Maryland. And guess what? That means that citizens of those communities will serve on those boards to review every complaint against a law enforcement official. Every single agency in the US of A needs to have an accountability board. So we
Will
need
the
to come forward and say that that's what they need to implement.
will those accountability boards be ran by bootlickers, and be will they be corrupted within time?
You know what? That's a really good question. And I've had actually officers tell me that they hate that word. They hate that statement, bootlickers.
I love
And
it.
I'm like, well, what's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that because it's accounting for people that are uh, they are the company men, right? They're the ones that, like that sergeant, are following through with an order, regardless as to the integrity behind it. And so I have no problem with you using that word bootlicker or any organization calling an officer that fails to follow the rules of every other human being out there, right? They are bootlickers, and it's a very derogatory statement that gets a lot of cops pissed off, but I call it like I see it.
I'm so
And
glad you said that. Thank you so much. I'm gonna use it
yeah,
so much more now.
in my in my opinion, to answer your question, yes, there is a potential, just like any other situation that involves human and human errors, there is the potential for corruption amongst those citizen accountability boards. So, like, kind of like what Jason always says, who's going to police the police, right?
Right?
Who's going to police the accountability boards? I think that takes us as those auditors in the general public and accountability and transparency measurers out in the public, we have to keep an eye on them. And but again, if you want, you as your person and me as my person, if we want to be on those accountability boards, that gives us another voice to watch and police the police. So I guarantee if I have the opportunity and I see in my community that I can get that support to create that accountability board for that agency, for that captain that told me he doesn't want us amongst him, guess who I'm going to be policing? I'm going to be policing that captain that got sued for $500,000 for physically sexually assaulting a citizen. I will be on that board, captain, and I will be the one that calls the shots when I see that there's something wrong in your ranks.
Man, uh, so much to talk about, Jody. We can go on for hours and hours and
Mhm.
hours. Sometimes I find myself being on other folks' podcasts and I just won't shut up. And I feel like a lot of times people have to shut me up just because I can go on and on and on and on. I think I've been doing this shit a long time. I think I've been trying to figure out ways that will work to bring accountability. Like I said, I'm trying to touch all bases here when it comes to fucking lawyers, when it comes to fucking cops, chiefs of police,
Yeah.
city attorneys. Like a lot of people think the mayor's the most important, powerful person in the town. I
City
think,
administrator.
yeah, I think it's the city attorneys, city managers. These are the
It's the
guys that, men and women. These are the people that have the contracts within the
yeah,
towns.
correct.
Um, these guys can create monopolies. You know, these
Correct.
guys can allow bad things to happen. Misappropriation of funds, all kinds of shit. I can go
Yes.
on and on and on and on and on
Immense
about.
immense power with town administrators, city administrators. Those are individuals that are considered the CEO. They are the chief and executive officer of that organization over and above the chief. They're typically very closely aligned with the chief. They're buddies. They play golf. They drink beer together. And they are part of the problem. So I think there needs to be a lot more scrutiny on town and city administrators and the power that they hold amongst their organizations. They mandate the budgetary decisions. They mandate urban development and planning. These are all things that where there's hidden funds that pass in exchange behind closed doors, Rolexes that are given to people amongst city organizations for that contractor that got that ability to build that $20 million building for the city. There's a lot of backdoor deals that go on, and it's all quid pro quo, which means to a lot of people that don't know what quid pro quo is you do something for me, I do something for you. It's in exchange for that even covering of collusion. So yes, you are correct. City and town administrators are those number one officials that we need to look a little bit more closely at.
I agree. Folks, let me talk to my viewers now. You guys, do me a favor. Go subscribe to Officer Jody. Show her that love and that support. Let her know that you guys are there. You guys have done this for a lot of channels. You guys have supported many of us. You guys have helped me grow into the person that I am today. I'm not going to give you the credit that my mom and my wife deserves, but obviously you guys have helped me learn a lot of shit along the way. You guys helped me become the man that I am sometimes, right? You guys didn't put me down too much, and you guys gave me the opportunity to, build myself and show what I truly am about. And I think that that's what you guys do with a lot of folks, and I would really appreciate if you guys do the same with Officer Jody. Let her know you're there. Let her know that we welcome her in. I know a lot of times you guys give a lot of shit to folks who are ex cops, but look at We the People University. He's an ex retired. I don't know if he's retired or he's an ex cop, but he points that out at least 5 times in every video in his narrations. I'm an ex cop, ex sheriff, this and that, and I like it. I like the guy. He's a good guy. I got nothing bad to say about the guy. He's amazing. Does amazing work, and you guys love him. That's why he's got a lot of subscribers. Um, do the same for Jody, Officer Jody. Go over there and subscribe. Let her know I sent you. Obviously, she's here, so she's gonna know. But yeah, any last words, Jody, for me, for the people? Thank you, Jason Basker, as well, homie. Don't let me forget you, bro. Thank you for
Yes.
everything. Thanks for
Much
connecting us.
love for Policing the Police and Freedom Thought Project or Free
Can
Thought Project.
can we
I
do
always say,
the? Can you do that right there?
oh my God,
The
I
other
am
side.
not,
Other
you gotta
side.
go opposite.
Well, Jason,
Oh
there you
my
go. We got
God,
a heart for Jason. There you go.
that's
Much love, Jason. Good
okay.
shit. That one's for you,
Final
Jason.
words? Yeah, thanks so much, Jason. Final words is let's create a unified voice for the people for accountability and transparency in government and policing. Please do me that solid. I know you may not like me because I have that former experience as a police officer, but again, my heart of service has always come forward to helping others first and foremost versus only enforcing the law on the books, right? I have that empathy for you and for those that you work so hard for in your family. If you have any kind of issues in your life right now where you want insight, feedback, and alignment when it comes to law enforcement, let me be your ally and help you. I will take on some select cases when it comes to victims' right advocacy work. I am very busy with my Maryland case right now. I'm taking on another new case here in Florida. But please reach out to me. Give me an opportunity to prove to you that I really am a heart of service. So that's my final words.
Cool. I really appreciate you, Jody. You're awesome. I think you have something to offer. I think you have something to bring to the table. I think we the people have a lot to learn. I think policing is something that is difficult to understand. A lot of people say if you want to make change, become a cop. You think that's true?
Oh gosh, you know what? Now that I'm not a sworn, I'm still certified in the state of Florida until August of 2025.
Because
Okay,
you
so I'm
tried
still
that.
I'm still a certified police officer. I'm just not a sworn officer, meaning I'm not with the police agency anymore. And now that I am not, I have the freedom to talk to you and to get out there in the public eye and have conversations on camera with other people. I didn't have that before. I had to follow policies, procedures, and general orders with my agency, right? And that creates my hands being completely tied. I couldn't be as honest as I am right now with you. So, to answer that question, no, I can't speak for others. Obviously, I can only speak for myself that I am now free to speak.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jody, for giving us the opportunity to get to know you. And I really do appreciate you and your efforts to help folks. There's a lot of things you said in this conversation that I appreciated. For instance, when you said that you called the prison wardens to let them know that you got a person in there that don't belong in there. Imagine if that person was me. I
Mm-hmm.
would want somebody to do that for me. I would want somebody to look out for me. That's what we the people are supposed to do for each other. Not be afraid to lose our jobs. Not be afraid to do the right thing. That's not freedom. To be afraid to do the right thing, that shit's not freedom. And with that being said, I'm gonna end it with that. So thank you, Jody. We'll do this again soon.
Thank you. Have a good one. Stay
All
safe.
right. All right. Much love.
All right. Bye.
Bye. We're done, guys. Thanks for tuning in.